Okay.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today on this rainy, drizzly, beautiful, sunny summer day, kind of, sort of, maybe not exactly. We'll start things off. My name is Tom Acrobato, and I'd like to tell you a story. Actually, I'm going to be telling you several stories. So, we're going to go ahead. I've done this for a couple of years now, and welcome to this event, which is entitled Ranting and Raving. And you know what? There's a few good reasons why it's ranting and raving. Because I'm going to be ranting and raving for a while. So, put up with me. Feel free. The exit's over there. The guard dogs are waiting outside if you do step out. But I'll warn you now. This is one, I might be pulling some punches, maybe not. You're all fair game. I'm just telling you that. Don't get too worried about it. Either way, we all have stories to tell in our lives. Whether it's something funny, something happy, something sad, something entertaining, we all have little bits and pieces of us that we get to share with each other. And the stories change depending on the telling, depending on who we are and where we are at any given point. So I'm going to share a couple of stories with you tonight. And I hope that you enjoy them. I hope that you have fun. I hope that you appreciate them. And if you don't, may you never utter a word again. So, let's start off with a little story. This one is called Telling Tales Out of School. Now, for those of us who went to the public school system, I happen to be a graduate of PS 177 in Brooklyn, in Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. That's right. Some of you might know that school well. Well, at PS 177, we had a number of characters, a number of teachers. I was living in Brooklyn in the 1970s, which was a very interesting time in itself to be in New York City, and a very interesting time to be in the public school system. The teachers there were characters. What kind of characters? Well, you know, some of them left a little bit to be desired. Some of them were great and influential people. And then there's one or two motherfuckers that you've got in your life. So if you get upset about language, understand some of it's going to be out there tonight. Just saying. Forewarned. Mrs. Tillinghast was my third grade teacher. Mrs. Tillinghast was her name. Yes. She was a very interesting woman. Fiery red hair, cold blue eyes. She was one of these people that could make you wither with that glare. She had more power to intimidate a young child than anyone else. So, if you were an 8-year-old and in Mrs. Tillinghast's class, you were in deep shape. So, you had to be ready, willing, and able to stand up on your own. And it kind of helped that, well, I had a mouth. But it doesn't always help. Mrs. Tillinghast was someone who ruled her classroom. And in New York City, in the public education system, if you were a teacher, you had complete control of your students. Of course, they didn't like you smacking them as much as they did in times that were before then. But still, you didn't have to worry about if that hand would fly or not, or what side of the Prozac did that teacher wake up on today. Well, Mrs. Tillinghast was an interesting one. She ruled with an iron fist. Whatever she said was absolutely correct. And me, as a mouthy little 8-year-old, had my own fun experiences with her. If you had to come into school and you had to bring your own tools, your scissors, your glue, your other stuff, or all of your little creative arts that you would do in 3rd grade, you had to make sure those scissors were safety scissors. Whether or not they had those little rounded edges, remember your little kids, you had to use safety scissors? Well, I was a poor white boy from Brooklyn. I didn't have much for safety scissors, but we did have, my mom gave me a pair of small, regular scissors. Kind of flat-edged, but not qualified as safety scissors. So in class, I brought those in for work, for doing my little projects, and had Mrs. Tillinghast confiscate them. And I wasn't the only person she confiscated things from, but she confiscated my safety scissors and put them away. And she said, as an example to everyone, understand that these are not acceptable. Not that it was acceptable because it was dangerous, but I had violated her orders. And because I violated her orders, something was not going to go well for me. She also had another interesting little paradigm, which was, if you were to take a test, a quiz, say it's a spelling quiz, after you finish your spelling quiz and you receive your grade back, you had to then bring it home to have your parents sign off on it and say, this is what you got, we agree. Well, I was 8. I was lazy. So I'd get a 95 or I'd get 100 on my quiz and I'd get it back. And we'd get it on a Wednesday. And she'd say, bring it back by Friday. You know, there was a lot of cartoons on TV in the 1970s. I'm just saying, there was a lot of cartoons on TV. So occasionally I would forget and I would bring it back and I would be granted a 0 on that quiz because it wasn't signed. So the 100% that I got on my quiz turned into a 0. Well, Mom came up for parent-teacher night. And parent-teacher night, my little Irish mom, who some of you have had the pleasure of meeting, she had a mouth like she had a mouth that could make a sailor blush. You know, she was about 5'0", and you wouldn't want to tangle with her if you were 7 foot tall. Well, Mom came up there for parent-teacher night, and she was asking, why are his grades so bad? So Mrs. Tillinghast looked at everything and said, you understand that he didn't get these quizzes signed. Look at all of these quizzes, unsigned, unsigned, unsigned. And my mom looked and she said, 95, 100, 95, 100. Are you telling me that you zeroed out all of his quizzes because I didn't sign these? She said, oh, absolutely. Now, again, I was a slightly mouthy 8-year-old, so I stood there, arms akimbo, swear to God, and said, are you trying to pull something, lady? Well, that didn't go over well. You would have thought that I had said something horrible about her sainted mother. But my mom was there to back me up. And I knew that my mom was going to stand up for me. And she did. She said, that's right, I want to know. Why is it? Are you telling me that you are destroying his grades because he just didn't have something signed? Obviously, he's smart enough, he knows the work. But maybe he is a little lazy. Maybe we need to focus on that. Well, one would think that it would have ended there. This was a Friday parent-teacher conference. Monday, Tom came into school. And Mrs. Tillinghast was ready. She'd had the entire weekend to sit and stew and let this ruminate in her head on what was going to happen. So, we all came in, we took our places, we sat down in class, and we were there, and she was dead silent. And just everyone knew we were going to be in for something. So she stood in the front of the class finally, and she said, I want you all to know that someone here thought that their attitude was going to be better than mine. Someone here thought that they were better than me. Someone here was rude to me. Someone here tried to embarrass and humiliate me. Someone here, and she stared right at me in front of the entire classroom, owes me an apology for being disobedient. It was something out of Matilda. And here this woman was, her fiery red hair, her cold blue eyes staring right into mine. She never said my name. She never said it was Tommy that had done this. but everyone knew. She harangued me continually for the next 3 days in the classroom. When I walked in, she would say, "I'm assuming that someone has yet to issue a formal apology, and I think that person needs to stand up in front of this class and do so now." I held out for 3 days, but I was 8. And so finally, I felt I had to do what I had to do. So I went. I stood up in front of the class, in front of everyone, and in front of to her. I said, "I'm sorry, Mrs. Tillinghast. I was rude to you. I will never do it again." And she had that air of smug satisfaction. She had done what she wanted to do. It wasn't that I had yelled at her. It wasn't that I got a cocky little attitude from an 8-year-old. It was that I had stood up to her rules. And that's what it was all about, was the rules. Her rules. I never forgot that woman, and I never forgot that day. But you know what? Time goes on. A number of years later, I came back to visit my family in Brooklyn, the 3-family house that my family owned. My great aunt owned the house. She had the upstairs apartment. My mom and my brothers were in the downstairs apartment. And they rented out a little back room apartment. So came and saw my mom, saw my brothers, saying hi to everyone. I said, "So what's new?" They said, "You're never going to guess." I said, "Oh, what?" I said, "Mrs. Vass, formerly Mrs. Tillinghast, is now renting the back apartment upstairs." I said, "Oh, really?" Well, Tommy's now an adult. And he's got a long memory. So I made sure that when Mrs. Vass came home, I was there to greet her. And I said, "Hello, Mrs. Vass. How are you?" Because suddenly Tommy had grown. I wasn't an 8-year-old anymore. I was a 20-year-old. And I'm looking down at her. This woman who had inspired such fear, such strength, such animosity, who enjoyed the humiliation. Those eyes were still there. That red hair was still there. The eyes were a little softer. She, long since divorced, gone back to her maiden name. She was caring for her elderly mother down in Florida. What was I going to say? I remember all the horrible things you said to me. I remember what you did. I remember how badly you treated me when I was 8. Or did I just say, "Hello, Mrs. Vass, it's good to see you again"? And that's what I did. I was a good boy. I didn't feel it was worth carrying that grudge. However, on one of her trips to Florida, I went into my aunt's apartment. I had the key for that. And I took the extra key to Mrs. Vass's apartment. I still have the scissors that I took off of her counter to this day. She doesn't know what she did, doesn't know how they got misplaced or anything like that. I had no interest in harming her, damaging her home, anything like that. But sure as shit, I got my pair of scissors back.